What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to SteveBussaGS. Look, man, I'm being joined today. I have a very, very special guest. I'm excited. Dacé, she is a modern age legal sex worker in the United States. She's working at the Mustang Ranch in Nevada, and she's agreed to come and talk with me and talk with y'all and answer whatever questions I can come up to throw at her. How are you feeling today, love?
Hell yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Steve, for having me on. This is like my first real YouTube interview with anybody, so you're popping my YouTube cherry today.
Let's go. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna set the bar up real high. It's all downhill after this. Like you starting at the top already. You know what I mean? No, thank you for coming on. So for those of you who aren't familiar with her, she's actually super hilarious on TikTok. I found her on TikTok by making content where she goes and explains her life of working on a ranch and the ins and outs of the business. She's telling stories with clients and stuff like that. And you guys know me. I got locked in. I was like, all right, cool, we're here. I ended up shooting my shot. I was like, hey, I would love the opportunity to chop it up with you. And lo and behold, here we are. Yeah, I'm excited about this. Would you like to give us a quick bio? Just give me like a breakdown. Who are you, why we're talking to you, and everything like that.
All right, I'm Dacé. I just had my 28th birthday. I live and work in Nevada at Mustang Ranch, and I've been a sex worker for the last 6 years.
All right, so we're 6 years into the business. What made you get into it?
I originally got into it because I needed to make money pretty fast, and I knew that that was a good way to do it. So I shot my shot, kind of. I sent in my application. The madam called me the next day, and the rest is history.
I feel like there's a step we're missing because, like, if someone's like, "Man, I need money right now," and then you just went to, "I shot my shot." How did you come up with the idea of like, are you just was it local? Was it like something that you were like super familiar with already? Did you see it online?
No, actually, I had never done, well, I say never. When I turned 18, I briefly did webcamming. So that was like just a flash in the pan, really, 3 months of my life, and then moved on until I broke up with the guy I was seeing at the time. I wasn't well enough financially to keep my apartment, and I needed to make money fast. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to do it with any kind of job. I don't have a college degree. I'm not trained in any kind of thing like that. Um, so you got to do something. You got to shake some ass. You got to sell something. I didn't know anybody to sell some drugs. So I was like, well, I'm going to go work at the ranch.
Fair
um,
enough.
yeah, I could have gone. It would have been, I was living in Denver at the time, so it would have been closer to work at a strip club or something like that. But I'll tell you what, Steve, I can't dance for shit, and I wasn't going to for 8+ hours a night. So
That'd have been a
yeah,
whole different. So let me ask you this: Can I ask you some personal questions then? While we're
sure.
in this stage in your life, were you somebody who? Sounds like a dumb question, but you know what I mean. Are you somebody who enjoyed sex prior to doing like was sex something you were passionate about prior to this?
Yes, extremely so. In fact, a couple years ago, I wrote a book about all of my sexual experimenting and being sexual growing up, and I sent it out to like 7 or 8 different editors. Nobody responded except this one woman, and she's like, "No one's gonna print this." And I'm like, because it's talking about when I'm 12 and like every phallic shaped thing in my house had its day in my pussy. Like, come on.
And so now that you got a little bit of a buzz, a little bit of a following and stuff like that, are you going to be looking to get that published then?
I don't know. I think it's probably for the same reasons the editor gave me, not appropriate to say that young girls are super young girls, like 11 and 12, are sexually explorative like this. And that kind of gives predators more of an incentive, you know what I mean? And I don't want that.
I agree with you. I'm with you on that. I see that point, but at some point that I feel like the conversation definitely falls onto like any type of a predator situation. The blame doesn't fall on the victim. The blame falls on the predator 1000% of the time. Like if there's an educational aspect to like, hey, this is like a real time situation, the things that women go through, and that doesn't exist, that might be an avenue for it. Just put it out there. Like if that doesn't exist right
I
now,
agree. I felt strongly about it at the time because it was my experience and my journey with sexual exploration, and I thought it was relevant. I still think it's relevant, but you know, anytime anyone says, oh, a predator might like it, I'm like, oh no.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you got into the ranch thing? You said you're 28, so you were about 22 years old around there?
Yeah, I was just at the end of being 21, about to turn 22 when I started working at the ranch, August of 2016.
All right. So I think most people have heard of like the Playboy Bunny Ranch, right? Like we've all heard of that. I don't really know much about it. Obviously, I've seen the TikTok, so I have maybe a little bit more insight than the average person. What does it mean to work at a ranch? What does that entail? What do you do?
So that means that you're a legal, only in Nevada, sex worker, and that you work in a regulated brothel system. And just, you did say Playboy Bunny Ranch, and that's totally fine, but it's the Bunny Ranch has nothing to do with Playboy, so I don't want to drag them into this.
Fair.
Um,
See, that's why this is important. We're ignorant people on the outside looking in. This is what was all right, my bad. The Bunny Ranch. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, and I mean, several sex workers have been to Playboy Mansion parties. I myself haven't. I've had coworkers that have gone, so it's a very fluid kind of industry. But Playboy doesn't have anything to do with brothels currently. They don't have anything to do with the Bunny Ranch, and the Bunny Ranch is in Carson City, and it is separate from the Mustang Ranch. So the Bunny Ranch had the HBO show. I believe it was called, I don't know, but it wasn't Girls Next Door because that was the Playboy series.
Right.
But they did have a series where they followed the girls.
This all take me back to my childhood. This is
Yeah, me too, because that's how I knew about brothels. At the time, I was shocked. I was like asking my parents all these questions. How is this allowed? And they're like, oh, that's the Wild West. They do their own thing out there, you know?
that's awesome.
And yeah. My dad used to answer the phone at home way back when I was a kid. His friends would call. He didn't think anyone was around. He'd be like, Mabel's whorehouse. And my parents know I work at the ranch. They've known since I started there. Like the week before I got there, I told them I got accepted to this new job. This is what it is. And sometimes I'll answer my dad's phone calls and I'll say, it's Mabel's whorehouse. And he fucking has a heart attack every time. He's like, that's not funny.
That's amazing. Let's go. All right. Let's talk about the ranch, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that this is not a regular ranch, right? It's not cattle and shit like that. What happens? Like I'm walking into a ranch. What is a customer's typical experience when they walk through the doors of a ranch? Give me like a mental tour.
So, I mean, I can speak for Mustang and Bunny because those are the only two I've worked at, but it's the same basic setup at both places. You walk into the bar, you get a drink, you sit down. If you want food, the Mustang Ranch serves food, Bunny Ranch does not. And you mingle with ladies. There's ladies sitting out there in their outfits. They will come talk to you after you get your drink. We're not going to like bombard you as soon as you walk in the door. Or we'll give you the opportunity to walk up to a lady of your choice. The first thing we say to a gentleman is always supposed to be, are you waiting on somebody? Because they might be an appointment. If they're not, and they've never been there before, we take them on a free tour of the facility and we give them the lowdown. You know, every lady's an independent contractor. You talk privately about prices, etc. And you know, it's a catch and release situation. Sometimes they're like, okay, I'm gonna go chill in the bar, or sometimes they're like, can we go to your office? And we talk.
Nice. Fair enough. All right. So what is more common? Do you get a lot of walk-ins, or is this more of like an appointment thing?
Now that I have a little bit bigger following on the internet, I'm starting to get more and more appointments only. And some Saturdays I'm appointment only. But it's like half and half walk-in traffic versus people that are there just for you.
Okay. And how has your experience changed over 6 years? Because obviously, you know, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, brand new situation that you're walking into versus like being at any job for 6 years. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna have just natural like peaks and valleys. What has been your experience there as opposed to working in ShopRite?
Definitely. So, I mean, I've had jobs from fast food to working at a gun factory. So, I've kind of seen the gamut of that as far as unskilled labor jobs. So the ranch is, when I started working night shift, which was hard for me. I'm not a night person. I hated it. And I did night shift for 3 years, Steve. And then COVID hit. I actually left right before COVID, but COVID hit. We were down for a whole year. I wasn't there. And when I came back December of 21, They put me on day shift, and it's been really different. Like before, it was just a job and I just kind of did it. I was super glad about the money. I got through it. I didn't tell anybody that wasn't my friend or my family member that I was actually a sex worker. I actually told people I did real estate, which I dabble in now, but since switching to day shift, totally different. Like I have time to be entrepreneurial and productive and like put effort into issues that mean something to me, like, you know, discrimination against sex workers. Whereas before I was just like, I don't have time or the energy to deal with this. And also it's because I've gotten older and I've gotten more passionate about things as well. So
Absolutely. So, I mean, did you have the option to switch shifts before, or you just have to do it where they put you at?
no, I wanted to be accommodating, and I'm naturally just a very accommodating person. I don't want anything to be an issue for them, especially because they're dealing with so many women and it's hard to deal with a bunch of women. So if it's not a big deal, I just let it go. And it didn't seem like a big deal to press to be on day shift. But then when that was my schedule, I was like, no, I have to keep this schedule to keep sane. And they did actually, my madam messaged me like 2 months into me coming back. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to put you on nights, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, my customers have made appointments for the daytime and I'm not switching or I'm going home, you know. I finally felt confident enough to be like, no, I'm an independent contractor. I'm running a business. This is how best my business runs. And this is how I'm going to work with you, or I'm not going to work with you at all.
Nice. How would you say your relationship is with the madam?
Very good. She's like a mother to me.
That's
So,
awesome.
so we sometimes have mother-daughter fights. You know,
That's fair.
it's a passionate area to be working in, situations to be operating in. So
So you're doing this on night shift. Is it a little bit different next? Like I would equate that to like stripping, right? And where like you said, like I could have been a stripper, I could have went there. Like night shift is normally like the preferred shift, right? Isn't that like the more action or no? So it's different with the ranch.
no, with the ranch, in my experience, and I did night shift from 21 to 24, and I've done day shift since then. Uh, Night shift is when all the drunk people come in. It's when the bachelor parties that are getting their night started come in to pregame, and they're not here to spend all their money already. And by the time they get drunk and end up at the strip club, that's when they're spending all their money and they're going home with the dancers. And I don't blame them, you know, but the drunk guys that end up at the ranch at night are not my preferred clientele at all. I'm looking for that businessman coming in during the daytime during his lunch shift. I'm looking for that older gentleman spending his day there. The people who are serious about it, who have a little bit more money to throw at this and have much more manners to inject into the
Fair
situation.
enough. Do
Yeah.
you so when you look at this is kind of like more getting into like your mindset about it now, right? Like so like if I'm getting into sex work, is it like, hey man, this is strictly like I got a marketing strategy. Like what that's what you just sounded like, right? Like I'm looking for people to fit a certain demographic, a certain profile that act and walk and talk a certain way.
Oh
Is
yeah,
there
because I know myself as a product. Sorry. I mean, I'm that straight vanilla girl next door kind of person. I'm going to give a good experience, an amazing experience to like a certain market. So that's what I'm looking for.
now do you ever go for like looks or attraction over that, or is it like nah, I know where the money's at, the money's where we're going for this?
Some days. But if I have made plenty of money, I'm staying out in that bar looking for the hottest motherfucker walking in that door. I'm trying to get off, go to bed. Yeah. But
I'm
some
with it.
days it is just about the money.
So let me ask you this then. For to try and conceptualize this, this is a personal thing that I've always wondered about, right? Let's look at a work week, right? So 7 days a week, Monday through Sunday. How many days do you work? I know the answer to this already from TikTok, but this is for the audience.
It's 7 days a week, and it actually ends up being like 8.5 because I come in on a Tuesday evening. I get seen by the doctor. It takes 24 hours to clear. Then I work 7 days and I go home.
Gotcha. And then they're like 12-hour shifts you had said before, right?
Yes, every single day.
All right. So here's my question about this then. If you're working 8.5 days a week, right, and you're working 12-hour days, how many clients are you seeing in that time? If it's too personal of a question, like I get that, but like I feel like that's a lot of the stigma that like it was one of the things that we wanted to talk about, right?
Oh yeah,
Is
that's
is around people not really having an idea of how to quantify like what it, you know what I'm saying? Like number of partners, amount of effort. If I'm a girl, do you guys, are there any men at the ranch at all?
No men that work there as
Fair
like
enough.
sex.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so if I'm a girl and I'm a woman and I'm looking to consider this as a career, like I don't know if I'm seeing 5,000 dudes a night or if it's like you're picking and choosing one or two a day. Like, what does that look like for an average? I'm sure it differs, but like an average work week.
I would have to dig through and average it. One week, my madam sent me a clip. They keep the averages of all the girls, how much you make, how many people you see. They know how valuable you are to their business, and they're keeping a spreadsheet of it all the time, every day, every week. So one week, the madam sent me a clip of my spreadsheet, and she was like, "You saw 61 people this week. Wow." I was like,
61.
61 people in a 7-day period. And so I know from having my printouts, every time they give you a paycheck, which is twice a week, they give you a spreadsheet printout of all of your parties, every expense that they incurred for you, like room and board, cleaning fees, etc., and how many people that you partied with. So I know my total body count for my whole career.
Really? Is that something you'd be
Yeah.
willing to share with us out of curiosity?
Oh yeah. No shame in my game. It's 5,790 something.
Okay, you got me beat. You got a couple of me. I'm not gonna lie. Is there what's the culture like there, right? Between the girls? Is it competitive? Is it sisterly, friendly? Is it catty? Like what's the vibe?
Obviously, it can get catty, but to most people's disappointment, we're actually like more like a sorority family.
Interesting.
Um, we it's already hard enough being a sex worker. You don't need to fucking get shit from your coworkers. And the madams do a lot of policing on that front too. You could have a girl that's making 10 times more than everybody else, but if she's bringing down the whole house, they're suffering financially and they're not going to put up with that. So you got to cut out the bad apples, and they do a
Have
good job.
you experienced that? Like a bad apple having to be cut up?
Absolutely. I mean, women doing petty shit like throwing your food in the refrigerator away, trying to trip you in the hallway, dirty hustling all your clients. And dirty hustling is like when you've engaged with a guest in the bar and you're trying to make something go down, and another girl comes in, whether she's making just eye contact or shaking her ass at him or goes up and talks to him, that's dirty hustling.
How to walk me through that, right? So you're talking to some dude, I want to fuck him, right? I come over, I got the titties out and everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
You have an issue with it, right? What
Yes.
I'm assuming you guys have a no confrontation in front of guest policy, so on and so forth, things like that, right? How do you navigate these situations or not? Or it's like some guys like that shit, hit her. Like I don't like what happens.
No, we can't hit each other because we have to be so strict with the local sheriff's department. Anything more than a speeding ticket, you can't have your sheriff's card for that county renewed, and you can't work at the brothel. So no violence. But I had this happen to me where this bitch dirty hustled me not that long ago, Steve, like 4 months ago. And her and I look very similar. I'm not going to name names. And we have a similar style of delivering a party. So we share a lot of the same clientele. Well, a client came in who hadn't partied with either of us, but wanted to party with both of us, not at the same time, separately. So she was busy. She had just booked an hour-long party. I was talking to this guest. She comes out with her drink card, which they give you a voucher for free drinks when you party with a lady if you spend a good enough amount. Some things are on the house. So she comes out with her drink card to get drinks for her and her guest. And she hears this man telling me that he wants to either party with me or her. She comes over, doesn't even address me, puts her hand on his shoulder so that he has to turn around and be face to face with just her. And she's like, "I just heard you talking about me and I had to come over and say hello. I'll be done in an hour if you want to grab some lunch on the house and wait for me." And I'm like, oh, because this is thousands of dollars that I'm about to miss out on, that I did miss out on because of her. And so you can't react in front of the client. So I run into the madam's office. the owner was in there at the time. And I'm like, oh, this bitch, blah, 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 which is not a good look in front of the owner, no doubt. So they're all just like, calm down, we're going to handle it, blah, blah, blah. We obviously have to accommodate the guest's needs over, you know, a lot of things. So they let him party with that girl because that's who he wanted. And I missed out on that money. And she totally dirty hustled me. And then I had to turn around and be like, you know, let's not
Let it
fight. Let's
go.
make $1 million together. Because you never know when someone's going to come in and be like, oh, I want her, and I want to watch them do stuff to each other for X amount. And you need that money and you have to fucking go down on that girl you hate.
So I guess that was a follow. That was like a lead up into this question. Like as these tempers are flaring, as emotions are going, like obviously, I'm assuming you guys don't have to do anything. If there's something you don't want to do, you just say no. Like that's it, right?
No, of course. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I assume that. So like, I guess it's more beneficial to keep a positive, healthy relationship because it leaves the door open for more opportunities to make money, more opportunities for like couple parties and stuff like that. Then.
Yeah, definitely. And not only that, but like small or large incivilities in the workplace beat you down emotionally and, you know, mentally. And a lot of the women, including myself, you know, I was sexually abused as a child. I'm dealing with internal traumas and PTSD from different things in my life all the time. And so are these ladies, whether they've shared that with me or not. It's obvious. You know, everyone's dealing with their own shit. So where was I going with that? So yeah, you have to keep yourself, you know, damn, where was I going with that, Steve?
We were talking about what the importance of maintaining relationships with the other ladies because other business opportunities may come up for it.
Oh yeah. No, you have to keep yourself in check all of the time with your emotions and things that you might do purely from an emotional standpoint, because everyone's dealing with a lot, and you want to keep the atmosphere in the house to where that you can just do your job. I mean, some days I may be in a state of mind where I can't even go about my business and do my job knowing that this girl has a problem with me and is sitting over in the corner seething and hating on me from afar. You know?
I get it. Yeah. I mean, that can be strong. I mean, I feel like that's to different degrees. I feel like most people encounter that type of a situation. You know what I mean? At work, like
Most people don't
who
have
wants
to,
added stress?
yeah, but most people don't have to live with their coworkers, sleep in the rooms next to them, eat across from them at the kitchen table every meal. Like, I'm in such close proximity with these women that it just heightens it all that more.
I believe it. So a couple things. Number one, obviously, you mentioned that you had harassment issues or assault issues as a as a kid. I want to offer my condolences for that. I'm sorry that you went through that. I don't want to just brush over that like that. Not say nothing about that. So I'm sorry that you dealt with that. Question on that. Since we're talking about the ranch itself. Is there like an on-site therapist that you guys have access to, or any type of mental health protocol?
No, actually, the mental health protocol is to put the girl's mental health first in every situation and make sure she's okay. Um, Beyond that, we don't have an on-site therapist because we're not employees. They don't provide insurance or anything like that for us. So that would be on our own to get. But the madams have several recommendations for therapists in the Reno area or therapists around the country that will do Zoom interviews with you that are sex worker friendly. So like, and I don't currently utilize those services, but I know how hard it is to find a therapist that knows where you're coming from. It can be a frustrating, long process.
I mean, that's good that they have that on hand then, right? Because like it cuts out the whole looking for somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like worried about finding someone that's going to judge you or someone that may not specialize in, you know what I mean? Like when to put on the kid gloves, when not to, that type of stuff.
It's good, but I would like to see more. And I don't know if I'm going to have to spearhead it or if there's someone out there already doing it, like the Sex Worker Project or the Cupcake Girls kind of. But I would like to see, for at least in the Reno area, for the Mustang Ranch ladies, there to be a larger network of accessible sex worker friendly doctors, because the 3 therapists that the madams recommend, what if I don't like any of them?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Essentially. Now I know about the whole living on site thing, again from TikTok. But it is kind of like I don't think the average person realizes that you actually live on site. Do you want to just briefly go over like what that's like the fact that you are on site for the entirety of the time, the check-in, the checkout, and things like that?
Yeah, so that's your home. You live there. You have your own dedicated room with an ensuite bathroom there, and it's for the medical safety of yourself and the clients, and so that people don't follow you at home at night. But we're checked by the doctor,
Oh
and
shit.
after we get checked by the doctor, we're basically locked in. They don't lock the doors. We can definitely leave anytime for any reason or no reason. But if you come back to work, you have to be seen by the doctor. It takes 24 hours, so girls choose not to leave. It hasn't always been like that. A lockdown house is what we call it. When I worked at the Bunny Ranch in 2017, we were not a lockdown house, and I could leave every single night.
And what do you prefer as a professional?
I prefer a lockdown house. That's the only situation where you're going to know that your girls are safe and that everything is above board all the time. And that's the only way you can guarantee the medical safety of clients, because I really don't know how the Bunny Ranch guaranteed anybody anything in 2017. I know since Dennis Hoff, the owner, died in 2018, there has since been overturn, and now the Bunny Ranch is a lockdown house. But yeah, very sketchy.
So
To just
anyone
let them.
coming to the yeah, no, I was very against it when I first heard like the idea, like you know what I mean? But then when the explanation of why made a whole lot of sense. You know what I mean? Like it does. Like it just makes sense when you get the full picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Um
just how the business operates. It's not like people are telling us we have to do this. We have our own free will, you know.
so let me stay on this for a second then. So you can pretty much assure that like with 100% certainty that if anybody were to come to the Mustang Ranch, every girl that he could potentially be interested in or she could potentially be interested in is 100% checked out and clean.
Yes, 100%.
What do they check for? They check like it's like a wide like everything.
Yes. The first time you ever come in, it's a full panel STD test. I think it's like more than 10 things. They're checking, they're checking for warts, for HSV 1 and 2, for obviously gonorrhea, chlamydia, AIDS, syphilis, that sort of thing. And then once a week, once every 7 days, they're retesting you.
Okay.
And then you
So
use protection with all the clients. So it's in theory foolproof.
so that was my next question. So if I'm interested in coming, I should expect to be using condoms or what all's the process?
Oh yeah, so you're going to use condoms, dental dam, saran wrap, whatever um, helps you, but is safe at the same time. So a dental dam would be how girls would, do things with each other, or a gentleman would go down on us. It's just a sheet of latex. The ones that they have are flavored and kind of colored. So I like to use saran wrap instead sometimes because men are very visual. Um, but yeah.
Sure. What is that like?
It's
Like I got
obviously,
experience with the condoms. You know what I mean? Like I have experience there. I've never even thought about using a dental dam. I've heard the words before. Like I know the term. I know what it's used for. I couldn't pick one out if you told me to. You know what I mean? Like what does it look like? I don't know.
oh, Steve, in your interview with Ava, one of the episodes you're talking about throwing hotel sex parties with like 3 rooms and 15 people. Y'all didn't ever use mouth protection?
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. No, not like there might not have been too much of any protection if I'm being completely blunt with you. Like
That's
this was unprofessional, young, dumb, a whole bunch of motherfuckers that just got together, got wasted, and played who's in my mouth. As like it wasn't you have a good like you guys have a system, it's professional, everything's above boards. What I did wasn't nothing like that. I just put a whole bunch of horny motherfuckers in hotel rooms and was like, let's fucking get naked. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna do that.
and you're definitely not alone. Like even the hardcore swingers that come to the ranch and party with me or that I interact with in the wide world, they're not using mouth protection on those sex cruises or at those sex clubs. Most people are getting tested often enough I say once or twice a year, which I think if you're having sex with multiple people, you should get tested a lot more. But yeah, not using a lot of mouth protection. Shocking.
It's
So yeah,
amazing.
at the
The
ranch we
cleanest sex
do,
I'll have in my life will be at the ranch.
honestly, for most people it is. And it
So
mutes the experience a little bit, I'll tell you. But like I've gotten there with a dental dam, so it feels good for the woman.
all right, so one of the questions I got on Facebook was from a lady I'm friends with, and she had a couple good questions. She asked me after I'd already sent you like the questionnaire, but this kind of plays into one. So she's like, she had an experience where she was getting hot and heavy with a guy. She pulled out a condom from her purse because she was prepared, and that turned him off because he thought like, having a woman that has condoms must be too promiscuous, so on and so forth, or he didn't like the way it feels, whatever the case may be. And she was like, does she run into that issue where people are immediately off put, you know what I mean, with it when they find out that they have to use protection, or going into a ranch, is that kind of like, is it like more or less understood?
Well, there are multiple signs posted up all over the outside and the inside of the building and the bar area that say no cell phones on premises, condoms required for all activities. So it's not something that you're going to be surprised about when the lady talks to you about it. But when couples come in, this is what surprises me the most. It's the wives who are like, oh, we have to use dental dams. It's not going to be fun. I just, no. And you're like, what do you think this is? And they're like, well, it's just oral. Well, it's just sex that we're having and it's not going to be unprotected. So,
No, I can see that being a real thing because, like I said, in the wild, I've never heard of a person using it. You know what I mean? So I could definitely, like you're saying, like, hey, the women are the ones that, you know what I mean, are like off put by that. I believe that 100%.
oh, yeah,
Um,
especially the couples that are like, we've only been with each other for the last 20 years. You get tested once a week. What's the problem? It's always the wife.
they give you like the whole pitch. All right.
Yeah.
Um, so is it in the event that they're like, look, I'll slide you 10 grand right now for us to go raw? Is it like, how do I want to put this? Is it in the like handbook? Like, is it the rules of the ranch that all the sex has to be protected no matter what? Or is there like some type of individualism where it's like, I can risk it and go to the doctors for the right price?
So the ranch has to operate under Nevada state law, and per Nevada state law, you have to use condoms between males and females. But there is no mention in the Nevada state law of having to use protection for oral sex between any parties. So technically, this is like, oh, I'm busting it out the brothel right now. This is like the best kept secret of the industry. Technically, you can let clients go down on you raw. Technically.
Legally.
Legally,
Now,
technically, you can.
now, what's the ranch's view on that? Is it like policy versus law? You know what I mean?
So the policy is unspoken.
Fair enough. Fair
The
enough.
policy is per person. If you decide you're gonna let old man whatever have his day, like
Okay, fair enough. That's good to know. Which raises a bigger question for me. So I'm gonna get a little open up about my kinks and shit like that, right? I am very big on photos, on videos. I'm a videographer. You would think that I was fucking. I can't name the videographer off the top of my head, but you would think that I was that fucking person with how you know what I mean? Like in those situations. It says no cameras on the premises. Does that mean if I wanted to pay for a party and I was like, hey, I really want a video of me, you, and my wife or something like that, right? Is there no way to have any type of footage in a situation, or is that another case by case in the room versus in the bar, just things like that?
that's case by case and girl by girl. If the girl allows you to film it, you certainly can.
Okay.
To be clear, there's no cameras in the bar area, but you can have your cell phone or a recording device inside the brothel. And Nevada is a one-party state, actually, so you can voice record anyone at any time, just FYI.
Fair enough. It's a little creepy to do that without people knowing, but whatever you're into, I don't judge.
Yeah, I mean, I've caught people trying to record the session before, like a guy hung his coat up on the door, put his phone outward, and like you have to take a shower before, so he's in the shower, and I just like turned his phone off because he
All
didn't
right.
ask my permission.
Cool. So like that's another step. Like people like this, all of this is new. So they have to come, they have to use protection, they shower before every situation.
Yes.
What else? Keep going. I'm
Oh
loving
yeah.
the insight. Like what else is there to the
Um,
process?
so normally while they're in the shower, because we don't shower with them, because there's not a panic button in the shower area or around the shower. In the larger suites, there's multiple panic buttons around the room, but in the smaller ones, there's just one panic button. So we try to like stay in the area near it. Um, Plus two people in the shower, things could get weird. Clients, try to get handsy, but um, I like to set up the room, turn on the music, put out all the party favors, the condoms, the dental dams, the sex toys. So many people come in and they haven't used things before. Oh, we inspect people. We visually inspect them for STDs before we accept their payment. And usually, like 1 in 40 has an STD, and I have to be like, no, I can't see you. Nobody can see you.
Really?
And they always act shocked, like, I've had that my whole life. Well, you've had an STD your whole life. Or that just came up, it's a mole. No, it's not. I've had to
Okay.
bust people out in front of their girlfriends and be like, you clearly got herpes. And the girl in this situation had no visible herpes, but she was pissed. She ran out of there before he did. She was like, you told me this was a condition that you've had your whole life.
Are you, this is not to sound ignorant, but are you qualified to make that kind of a call on the spot like that? I mean, I'm assuming you're probably more qualified than the doctor is. Like you deal with it a lot more, I guess. But legal, is there any kind of like legal, like say that situation were to happen, right? And Shorty runs out, you cause like a marriage to break up or something like that. Is there any kind of like legal culpability to be like this person misdiagnosed me publicly, something HIPAA
No,
violation?
absolutely not. You can't even qualify that as like slander because I calls them as I sees them. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not the most qualified person to be saying those sort of things. No, and I certainly don't diagnose people, even though I'm very strongly like, that's what's happening with you.
Huh.
I'm not a doctor, so it's not a diagnosis, but I'm the person who's going to be providing your sexual care. And if I'm uncomfortable for any reason, it's a no. And, for the reasons stated, I think you have herpes. It's a no.
Fair enough. All right. We this is getting all the details out of this. Is there anything else? All right. So from the time we walk in, I feel like I have a very good map in my head of how the interaction goes down, right? Um, are there specialists? Like, let's say I want to do something that may not be in your wheelhouse, right? Like, do you guys have specialists on deck for whatever weird kinks somebody might have one way or the other? Like,
Yeah, we
is there like a furry girl that like look, I'm not doing that. You gotta talk to Jasmine for that shit. Like, that's not really my wheelhouse.
oh yeah, there's definitely I'm not doing that. You got to talk to Leah for that. Um it's not like we keep a resident dominatrix or on site all the time, but we have girls whose those are their specialties, and multiple girls, who I could send you to for BDSM or send you to for anime parties, things like that. Girls who like anal sex. I won't do that for any price. Like, but there's people who will do it for a very reasonable price because they enjoy it.
Okay. Are you comfortable talking about what your do's and don'ts are, just as like an
Oh yeah.
idea?
Oh
Cool.
yeah.
Like,
That's
so if we
actually
were interested, like, hey, I really enjoyed your interview. I seen you on Steve's channel. I want to go and find her. Like, she was adorable. I want to go and see what's up. What are your specialties? Like, what is it that you're like, yo, if you need X, Y, and Z, I'm your girl.
If you just need to have a really good time and get your mind off things, I'm your girl. But like I said earlier in our conversation, I'm pretty much that girl next door, plain vanilla girlfriend experience type person. Like
Okay.
I will spend that quality time with you. And that's what my target clientele are looking for, middle-aged to older males. They want someone that they can go out with, they can go to dinner with, go shopping with, have a conversation that's more than just a surface level. Um, that's where I get a lot of people too. I'm not any smarter than any of my coworkers because they are some amazing, intelligent ladies. But like the caliber of conversation I have with people a lot of times seals the deal. So
I see. I can see I can see the situation itself being pretty intimidating. So having like the sweet girl next door kind of experience might actually be a lot less like shock value for somebody like especially like first timers and stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can imagine walking in that like that would definitely appeal to a lot more people than being like somebody walks up in full dom gear with a whip, like you're next, buddy.
Yeah. Oh my God. Some guys, they're like so nervous to even be there. I've seen people pull in the parking lot and then leave and then come back and do this like 6 times before they stop for 10 minutes in the parking lot and then they leave for good because that's they can't even come in the door. So that's why we're told to approach the men if they don't approach someone by the time they've gotten a drink, because they're probably so nervous. And it's not every guy that comes in like this that has low confidence in himself, but a lot of guys do. So when you come up and you're so sweet and you're like, "Hi, handsome. So glad you came in today. Are you looking for anything in particular? Oh, you're not. You've never been here. Let me show you around. What have you done lately? What did you do this weekend? What's the last book that you read?" You come off a little bit disarming like that, and people relax immediately.
That's super dope. That's a good atmosphere. Um, I'm loving this so far. Let's talk about you personally. So this is I want to lead into a question that I have. It's kind of like a just a personal question that I've had, right? So like what are your interests and hobbies outside of what you do for a living?
I'm a total grandma outside of being a sex worker. So my interests are literally embroidery, crochet, knitting, watching the Great British Bake Off, like any BBC production, Dairy Girls, fucking hilarious show. Um,
That's
but I
good.
like baking and cleaning my house and like I'm very domestic and kind of boring almost.
All right, so my question that I was leading up to is more like this seems like one of the type of careers where your career becomes your personality, right? At some point you stop being Dacé the grandma, right? And you're just like, oh, you know her, the sex worker, you know what I mean? Like that kind of becomes more of like who you are instead of what you do. Do you find yourself struggling with that, or is that common, or did I just make that up in my head?
Sometimes it leads over into what I'm doing. Like it's hard to be in bars because at where I work, it's a bar and I'm scanning for men and an opportunity. So it's hard not to go into bars and scope people out and like, accidentally scan for opportunities. It's hard not to interact with gentlemen in that same work vibe because when a guy starts talking to me, I'll just go on Dacé autopilot. And before I know it, I've accidentally enticed him. You know what I mean? And Dacé versus Rose, who I really am, Dacé's way more confident. Rose is the stay-at-home grandma. Dacé is the go-getter entrepreneur, take no shit from anybody. And I honestly try to let Dacé bleed over into my life.
Okay, I
She's
fuck with
got
it.
some good qualities.
So at what point does that stop being a persona and just really be like who you are?
I think somewhere probably in my mid 30s, the amalgamation will be complete.
Fair, something to look forward to, I guess, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so that's the basic idea behind like what it is, who you are, what it is that you do and stuff like that. Now I do want to get into the reason, the meat and potatoes of why we're here, right? So the idea of getting you in front of a camera and being able to have these conversations, we want to try and get rid of a lot of the stigma that goes behind sex workers to answer a lot of like the confusing questions that people think that they know the answers to, like myself, that they may or may not, and stuff like that. What got you passionate about not just being a sex worker, but wanting to like take up the shield for it and try to make a difference in the industry? Let's transition more into that type of conversation now.
Yeah, so like I said in the beginning, it was just a way to make good money and make my own schedule, do something that I remotely like to do. And then I started having parties with people, men, women, that mattered to me more than the average party. Like I started having these really human experiences with people where people got raw about their partner who passed away and how you're helping their grieving process, about how they haven't wanted to explore sexually since they were molested when they were a child and you finally gave them the safe space to do that. Like those things started to matter to me and I started to see that I have the personality to be there in those moments with those people, and that it was healing a little part of me too. And so I really thought, after 2 years in the industry, I love this, and it's more than the money and the freedom. And then uh, maybe like 6 months ago, when the TikTok started to take off, and I realized that my story impacted other women who are out there struggling, like to make ends meet, and they're like, "Oh, I can consider being sexy and making money that way, and I could change my life that way." Or being discriminated against as a sex worker and having it be so hard to do anything from banking to buying property. That just fired me up about not wanting any other sex worker, man or woman, to have to go through that discrimination, because it's so stupid. It's sex work is work. It's valid. I pay more taxes than most people. So
That's fair. What? Well, first of all, that's beautiful, right? You could hear it in your voice getting choked up a little bit when you start you start getting into the more like sensitive nature of it and stuff like that. Like that's dope. So let's talk about you prior to that then, right? What stigmas or ideas that were wrong that you had in your head coming into this about sex workers in general? Or were you just like from the rip, there was never a doubt? You were like, nah, all that's bullshit. Like I'm in, let's go. It's party time.
no. I'll be honest, and I hate having to admit this, Steve, but I very much judged sex workers before I became part of the community. I mean, even when I was 18 and doing webcamming, I was like, well, I'm doing webcamming and that's totally fine. It's not like I'm sucking some stranger's dick in a glory hole for $20. Like, that was my kind of overview of sex workers, as like dirty streetwalkers. That was all that I knew. I didn't have any role models growing up, especially in the South with all those Southern Baptist racist attitudes. I didn't have any good
I'm
view
sure.
of sex workers or anything going against what the Lord Jesus Christ would say is good and kosher. So, and then when I found myself in a position where I didn't care what I had to do to feed myself and survive, I was going to do it. It just came to me. You're going to be a good sex worker. You like having sex. Like, you're not bad looking. And all of my stigmas fell away when I started doing sex work. When I saw firsthand that, yes, this is something that a lot of women do because they find themselves in a position like myself where they felt that they had to do this. And then it totally changed. And I love it. And I'm still in the industry 6 years later. So yeah, I
And
had a
so
bad view of sex workers.
this that opens up so many questions that I have now. All right, so let's start here, right? Um, what is your view? So you when we let me phrase it like this. When we first started talking about this, right? Through email, right? Even then, where we're like, hey, like what is it you do? And you're like, I'm a legal, validated U.S. ranch work. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Yeah.
sounded like, yeah, I mean, like this is what I do. I'm proudful. Like there was no shame, nothing like that. What is your view of the lady on the corner doing sex work in people's cars, not, you know what I'm saying, unsafely? That like when people think prostitution, when people think sex for money, right? That's what they think. I think in my experience, very few people when you say that think of a brothel, think of an establishment, because they're legal in the United States. So unless you're in Nevada, your brain probably doesn't immediately go to that, right? We go to, like, I'm from Philly. I think of Kensington. I think of a chick with one tooth in her mouth, standing on the
Yeah.
corner with a needle on her arm. Like that's burned into our head because that's all we ever seen. Like there is no ranch in Philly. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we're in the
Yeah.
Badlands and you only see what you see. So what is the girl who does it right by the book, is getting tested, is being safe about it? How do you guys view those who aren't necessarily following that path?
I totally understand that I am in a super, if not the most privileged form of legal sex work in America right now. In terms of the safety I enjoy, the regulations and different things like that. I tend to pity streetwalkers, girls on the blade, especially if they have a drug problem and a pimp, because that's not what they want to be doing. That's just kind of what they feel that they have to be doing, and they might have got caught up in that sort of situation. And while people like you and I find it probably like hard to see how you would get caught up in a situation where you're using drugs on the street, living on the street, selling your body and giving all the money to some man that beats you, it's actually pretty easy to fall into that.
Yeah,
So I pity them.
I think a lot of my stuff stems like my mom used to get her ass beat in Pizza Hut parking lot for her paycheck while she was pregnant with me by my father. So like, and she stayed for a very long time as far as I know. You know what I mean? So like, no, I wouldn't say that I think that it's hard to comprehend how someone could find themselves in those situations. I'm extremely empathetic towards anyone who finds themselves in those type of situations. One of the reasons I like having these conversations publicly and try to bring awareness to it. So there's not any type of disdain. There's not like girls who do legal sex work look down on women who do illegal sex work or
I'm
beef
not
or anything like that.
I'm not saying that they don't. There is actually plenty of beef in the industry, whether if, you know, at whatever tier you're at, if you think the person above or below you is doing valid sex work. Like someone in my position doing full service in-person sex work might look at someone who's only doing webcamming stuff and be like, oh, you're not really a sex worker. I think you're a sex worker if you're doing webcamming stuff. I have coworkers who think you're not. Um, so there is definitely beef in the industry. I'm of the opinion that all sex work is sex work, even if it's doing happy ending massages, you know, or just webcamming or just phone sex. That's a sexual service too. Selling pictures of your feet, you're a sex worker.
And you don't you're not of the mind that there should be any type of distinction between somebody who works at a ranch versus somebody who works a corner illegally.
I think that a distinction should be made for the ladies who are operating in a heavily regulated legal environment, because you want the public to know all the things that come along with that. I wish we had more outreach for ladies who are turning tricks on the street. Maybe that's a dim view of them, and maybe I shouldn't have such a pitying view of them, because they're probably at some point having fun or choosing to keep going out to the corner every day. Um, yeah, I wish I had a better rounded opinion on it.
But
I haven't talked to a streetwalker in a really long time.
I mean, just the term streetwalker kind of implies that there is some kind of hierarchy differential between someone you see as a peer and a coworker versus someone that you feel like streetwalker is the proper tag, right?
I'll cop to that. Yeah, I did just create a hierarchy by that verbiage.
And I'm not looking for any specific answer. I just want the truth. Like if that's the way that it's viewed, like that's all I'm here for. I don't like I'm just trying to educate myself on the world that I'm not a part of. You know what I mean? How do you view or the industry? So we'll do you slash your coworkers, you slash the industry, right? How do you view the adult film industry?
I love it. I think it's great. When Riley Reid does tours at the Bunny Ranch, she's making 20 grand a pop. I wish I could be doing that. I haven't made any videos yet, honestly, because I don't like the way my labia look. That's all. I'm still on the OnlyFans.
Okay. So that I mean OnlyFans is obviously the next place that we're gonna go to. And then I kind of want to tie that all together with, are there any type of entrepreneurial restrictions or like contracts and things like that when it comes to the ranch? But one thing is I want to say on the adult film real quick. So when it comes to that, there's not the same kind of dismay or just the, you know what I'm saying, like mix up that there is with the streetwalker population. There's clearly a differential then between like porn stars or any, not even the stars, but there's people who do pornography versus people who are doing illegal sex work on the street.
Yeah. And the girls and I talked about this not that long ago. We were debating on if the term porn star is still even valid or not. Everyone I know at the ranch that also makes videos with different production companies that end up on Pornhub or sites like that, they call themselves porn stars. They say, oh yeah, I'm a porn star too. Um, so I think anyone can just claim that title. But yeah, if your original question was how do we feel about those girls in the industry, we embrace them more so than the webcammer or the streetwalker. So I think there's definitely playing into that hierarchy. We see them more as peers because most of the girls are fluid in that respect. They're also working in porn.
Okay. And then, so then the follow up to that is when it comes to the OnlyFans, apparently there's no restrictions on what you girls can do, as far as, you know, own your own OnlyFans, retain all the money from the OnlyFans and things like that. The ranch isn't involved in that in any way.
No, the ranch is not involved in that in any way. The only crossover being that since 2020 or maybe 2019, the ranch contract has included a clause that says that the stage name you pick, they sort of own your stage name. But I am maybe grandfathered out of that because when I signed my contract in 2016, I own my stage name. And now, just to make sure that there's no potential legal issues down the line, all of my stuff, I promote myself as the modern working girl with my name being Dacé, understood kind of, but I'm not on OnlyFans as Dacé.
Gotcha. This is interesting. So,
Although
in
I've gotten verbal permission from the madam that it's fine to use my working name, I haven't gotten written permission. So
you'll find that out when you strike gold and they want a piece of it.
yeah, exactly. I'm gonna be like, no.
Fair enough. All right. So I'm following along. I'm following along. Now, when it comes to, so like in collections, right? So there are people who do bill collections, right? They have what's called a dunning name, which means the person that calls you and they're like, hey, this is Mr. Smith, their name is not Mr. Smith. Now what happens is they have to register that name with the attorney general. So like when you pull a credit bureau report, it has like your AKA that literally like comes up on your credit report, right? I may or may not have done collections for like 10 years. So like I know how that works. Now when you say that like you have a stage name, right? I have several questions about this. Number one, is it legal? Like, is that a legal name that would appear in a similar thing like collectors do?
I'm unsure because that is the alias I'm registered with for my sheriff's card with Story County, the county that
So
I have
probably then.
right through. So it does come up on background checks. I had that happen whenever March of 2019, I left the ranch to go back to veterinary school, and then everything shut down for COVID. So I wasn't there for that whole year. It came up when I was trying to get a job at a local real estate place that I had a sheriff's card in Story County. And of course, everyone around here knows what that means. But yeah, to answer your question, my alias Dacé does probably pop up in relation to me legally.
All right. So then that probably answers my next question, but I'll ask it anyway. Are you not allowed to make up an alias on the fly and use that? Like if you're feeling very strawberry delight one night, are you allowed to approach a customer under a different name than the one that you registered as? That's the question.
Very good question. I'm not sure if we're legally allowed, but we're allowed to change our name at the ranch anytime with the madams as long as we sign a new contract with our new stage name. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's allowed or not, but yeah, sometimes I walk up to clients and just tell them any old thing. I try to keep that to a minimum because people tend to come back to see me time and time again, and you want the same story. But yeah,
is it like 100 out of 100 people hit you with a no? What's your real name? I want to know what your real name is.
90% of people, yeah.
Yeah,
they feel so close at the end. They're like, "What's your name?"
I can remember being 18 years old, first time at a strip club. I had Shorty give me a lap dance, right? And I was trying to be all gentleman about it. I was like, what do you want me to call you? Do you want me to use your real name or your stage? She's like, honey, you're so sweet. Just shut up and enjoy your dance. I was like, okay, I'll be quiet. All right, enough embarrassing stories about me. All right, are you allowed to have multiple names when you go to sign your contract? Could you put more than one alias?
Yeah, they prefer that you have a first and last name so that it's easier to distinguish between the droves of girls who've come before you.
Which was the next question, which is what happens if I want to use the same name that you have and you're registered before me? Is it like a first come, first serve thing? Or is there multiple Dacés there?
No, there you can have girls with the same name in the same state, but not the same county. So to get registered, you can't have, like at one time at the house, we had a Stella and we had a Stella Bella. And that was so confusing.
Fair enough. All right. Look, I don't know if you guys are interested in all of those legal technical questions, but I was. So I appreciate you taking the time to explore that avenue with me. All right, let's get back on track though. So we're talking about the idea of legal sex work versus illegal sex work, the way that you view different aspects of the sex work industry and things of that nature, right? What is there any so on your OnlyFans, right? Is that an aspiration to like keep that going on OnlyFans? Do you wish to like if the opportunity to be in an adult film were to come up? Is that something like I know you said you have insecurity issues, but like the right check comes along the line or something like that, and someone's like, we want to feature you in a movie. Is that an interest that you would have or anything like that?
Definitely for the right price. My main concern is that I would make like $2,700, $3,500, and they'd make 30 grand off that video over time. Um, but yeah, I would be totally down to do a video if I felt comfortable. I've never been in porn. I don't know what the deal is. Did they get checked by the doctor and then come straight to the studio? How is that? They could fuck somebody in the time that they get tested and get their results and be dirty. I'm so, I'm just so
Nah,
careful.
dude, that's facts.
If I get an STD, if I even get a wart, I'm done. I can't work at the ranch anymore, and that's my bread and butter right now.
Is there? Do you feel, man? Not to again. This sounds rude, but I don't mean it in a rude way, right? But like, do you feel like there's like an expiration date to this line of work? Because you've talked about like, hey, I'm going for my veterinarian license. I'm in real estate now. Like, it sounds like you're trying to branch out to have other options of income or other options of career paths, whether it's interest or whether you think it's like a necessity. Is there a cutoff there? Like, do you have women that are older in their 50s or 60s that work there? Because like there's definitely a market for it. You know what I mean? So like,
Oh
what's
yeah.
your view on that?
That's one of my most common questions, and I always answer it, with the answer. We have girls age 18 to 69, turning 70 this year. Our oldest working lady, she's booked up when she's here. She doesn't make very many trips out, maybe 3 a year, but she's booked up the entire time when she is here. Because men who are in their 80s and 90s, like a 40-year-old woman's a spring chicken to them. A 50, 60-year-old woman, that's what they're looking for. And that's what they message me and ask me about. They're like, well, do you have any 50 or 60-year-old women?
Let's
Yeah, well,
go.
yeah, they are. So while I don't think there is an expiration on the sensuality value of a woman, I think for me personally, there is a time where it's not going to be appropriate for me to be doing full person in service sex work. And I want to move on to the management and the advocacy side of it. So I'm expanding my levels of, or my streams of income. And I think everyone should, no matter what your plan in life is, having more streams of income makes you not beholden to one job so much. So like, just don't keep all your eggs in one basket. It's always good advice. That's with love interest and money and everything. But so when I
Hey,
become when I become the madam, I'm gonna make a good amount. I don't know what the madam makes. I haven't asked her. I suppose I could, but I feel like that's none of my fucking business, so I'm not even gonna ask. But I think it's probably less than 200 grand a year. Definitely less than what I'm making as a working girl. So I need all of my other streams of income to kind of buoy me up when that job, when the
no,
job
absolutely. When you
transition.
transitions from one to the other, that's dope. All right, well, that's obviously I try to avoid asking a lot of the money questions because I know legally you can only speak about, you know what I mean, certain things. Well, you're saying obviously now you make more than $200,000 a year, right? I guess my question was like that's going to set up a lot of ears to the ladies that are listening, to the guys, you know what I mean? Like people are going to be interested in that. Year one versus year six. I'm assuming you don't walk in the door and start making bank, right? Like maybe you do.
No.
Maybe someone's got the gift, you know what I mean? Or they come with their own clientele. Like I'm sure there's the exceptions to the rule, right? I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about like on average, Shorty walks in, she's good looking enough, you know what I'm saying? Like gets the job. Year one, what's an expected salary that would be realistic for the average girl coming in?
It depends on how many weeks you're working, and I don't recommend working more than 2 weeks out of the month because it takes such a toll on you. And you cannot pour from a glass half empty, okay? You have to pour from a full cup. So you have to take that personal time to recharge yourself. But for a girl coming in, she can expect to make between $2,500 and $5,500 per week when she's just starting out, or more. You know, the world is your oyster, baby.
Let's go. Okay. Personal opinion. Would you recommend, so like you got into this out of, I don't know if desperation is the right word, but like out of like a back against the wall type situation. All right.
Yeah.
If you're giving advice to impressionable young women who happen to be watching this, right? Would you encourage someone to be like, hey, even if your back's not against the wall, this is a viable option if you enjoy this line of work? Or is this something that you would say like, hey, if your back's against the wall and you need to try and make a jump, then this is something to get into?
I would say if you're even remotely interested, give it a fucking shot, because you're only young once, you know, or what, it doesn't matter what age you are. One of my best friends in the business this year is turning 52 years old, and she just started in sex work last December, and she's loving it. It changed her life. When I met her, she looked like she was 60. She was 51. Today, she looks like she's 45. And I'm not saying that sex work has afforded her the option for plastic surgery, but like, it has given her like a boost in life, like a confidence infusion that is invaluable.
Okay.
Especially in terms of like coming from a place where I was sexually abused to a place where I'm doing sex work and I'm interacting with all these strangers. It is sometimes triggering, but more than it's triggering, it's empowering, because these men are coming to me, they're humbling themselves to me, they're worshiping me most of the time, they're paying so much money just to be around me breathing, you know. It heals a lot of that inner child trauma.
All right, let's go
And
back
then
to
then you
the,
realize, sorry, then you realize you don't need men like that for your validation, and you start basing your validation as a woman on healthy things.
I like that. Um, all right, so I'm just seeing how I want to proceed with that line of questioning, right? Um, so you get into the business, the money is good, you're enjoying yourself, whether or not it's, you know, for you or not is probably based on whether or not you enjoy the activity, you enjoy living in that type of situation, so on and so forth, right?
Right.
I'm with it. All right.
And it's hard work. Like, it's not all cupcakes and rainbows and people kissing your ass. Like, sometimes she works hard for the money.
Let's talk about the stigmas. That's like the big thing, right? As far as like getting rid of them, or at least acknowledging them, getting rid of the taboo around talking around them, right? So I'm gonna hit you with my ignorant preconceived notions just to open up the dialogue, and I want to see maybe there's some truth behind it. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's complete bullshit that's fabricated by Hollywood. You know what I mean? I kind of want to just like go through them and talk. So we already talked about the STD thing, right? I can assume that the cleanest chick I've ever been with in my life is probably going to come from a ranch experience, as long as it's
Yep.
a lockdown ranch.
Yes.
Do
And
you
they
have
all are in the state of Nevada now.
okay? So that was my next question. Is like I don't expect you to know the answer, but like how many ranches are there?
There's 23.
Oh, you do know. Okay, there's 23 ranches. I mean,
There's 23, and they operate in 8 counties. So only 8 counties in Nevada have legal licensed brothels.
and all 23 of them are lockdown brothels now.
Yes.
Okay,
Some
so
of them
that
even have restrictions that like the owner has to be on property all of the time. So you'll have brothels with like 5 and 6 owners because someone's having to physically stay on the property all of the time.
24/7. Got you. I wonder why that is. I can't think of a legal good reason why that would be, other than trying to make it more difficult. You know what I mean? To open and operate.
Yeah, that's all it is. The banks do that to us. Real estate people do that to us. The owner of my brothel is also the Story County Commissioner. He doesn't get to vote in things pertaining to the brothel,
Right.
but he has to play a large part in the local politics just to keep an ear to everything.
All right. So we can pretty much chalk up the being dirty thing, right? Because that just doesn't make sense then. This is the opposite. I think we next thing I would like it's talked about, like you mentioned, like as far as like having a history of sexual assault. Most ignorant men will just describe that as like daddy issues or things of that nature, or the women who get involved in this tend to have some type of baggage. That's why they get into it to begin with. What's the reality of that? Like obviously it's not a 0 to 1. You know what I mean? Like that's gonna occur. I could walk into a deli right now and chances are 1 out of 5 people there have a similar situation. You know what I mean? Like it's not unique to brothels.
No, it's not. In the country right now, it's 1 in 4 women have been assaulted. In a brothel situation, if you got a group together of us, it'd probably be 1 in 4 of us hasn't been assaulted. I'll be honest. But it's not that we're hurting little girls coming to sex work because that's all we think we're good for. You know, people that have had hard lives are way more understanding. They can meet you where you are, they can see you for who you are a lot better than someone who's just grown up privileged their whole lives. So,
That's facts. That's
and which
facts.
is my biggest like rub with finding a therapist. If you haven't been abused, if you didn't grow up poor like I did, you're not going to know where I'm coming from. And the shit you're spouting off to me just sounds like privileged bullshit. But anyway,
That's no,
sorry.
no, but that's fair. I mean, my information. Do you know who Sky Daddy is by any chance?
No.
All right, Sky Daddy is a. I'm gonna fuck something up here. I know I am. She's they are an artist. I'm not sure what pronouns they go by. All right, so I'm not like whatever. She makes music. They make music for sexual assault victims, basically. Like her music is very emotionally driven. It's very descriptive. Sometimes it's violent. It's a lot of energetic release and stuff like that. And then she made an OnlyFans, right? And like her whole thing was kind of like she would get a lot of if I'm fucking up the pronouns, please don't kill me on this. I'm trying my best here. Like they were making music or they would get a lot of comments where it's like, man, how your sexual assault's not real. Like you couldn't have affected you like that if you're willing to do X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously, and the reply is always like, no, like my part of my healing process is owning my sexuality and not allowing myself to feel shame about it and not allowing myself to be controlled by what the populace thinks I should how the populace thinks I should react to X, Y, and Z happening to me, right? I am familiar with that kind of a response because of my interactions reacting to their music. You feel me? So like that actually makes total sense. You know what I mean? That it's more of an own it type thing. You know what I'm saying? Not to like break the power over them. Let
Yeah,
it
it is. If you've ever been made to feel that way, then the first time you get sexually aroused, you feel ashamed of yourself, to be honest with you. You feel dirty and awful and you don't understand. There's a lot to do with reclaiming yourself if you've experienced abuse and you're working in the sex industry now. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. I totally understand. I expect people who have been abused in the past to turn out as hypersexual. That's my view on it.
is that based on studies or personal experience?
That's just based on personal experience and the people that I know personally. So,
Okay. Um, what other stigmas did you want to do you want to go over? Give me a couple of like ideas that people have about sex workers.
ideas that people have about sex workers, besides them being dirty, is that they're drug addicts. Sex work and drug addiction get thrown into the same basket so often.
Correct. So the girl that asked that question on Facebook, it was like a couple questions she put together. The other one was, I always hear that like there's a lot of drug use involved in the industry and things of that nature. Now I know you've talked in length about this on TikTok, right? So like just go off. Let's like what is the reality behind the drug use in a ranch scenario? I'll start there.
The reality, and I'm not sure how pleased my madams are going to be with me for saying this, but the reality is that half the people are coming in there with a hookers and blow mentality, especially nights. So that's why I also didn't like night shift. And I'm not saying that I didn't party when I was younger, that I don't like to party. I get that. But for me, I'm at work and it's an environment where I have to be in control all the time. So it's not my time to party with all the tourists that come in there. So, but there's quite a few women I work with that clearly have addictions. And when you have a drug addiction at the ranch, they can test you on the spot at any time. That's in your contract. And they may be doing it when you give blood for your weekly STD testing. I don't think they are because you have to sign for all that. But basically, they can drug test you at any time, and it's not worth losing your job over to do drugs there. and they fire the girls that do. So we try to keep that separated from the ranch because it's one of those horrible stigmas. It really is. But is there girls doing drugs there? Yeah. Are there clients bringing drugs in to do with the girls? Yeah.
Okay. Now, legally, like,
Legally,
let's talk legally. Let's say if I want to come, right, and I'm like, hey, I want to book a party, and I got some edibles. I have some marijuana edibles. I want to get a girl. Let's zone out and fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like let's get high for a couple hours and fuck around on some edibles, right? Totally legal. I'm assuming I don't know what the laws are in Nevada for THC, but like, is that allowed, or is it just straight up nothing across the board?
so it's not really allowed to consume marijuana on any business premises. So
Okay.
technically no. But yeah, I've eaten clients' edibles before. I've given clients some of my edibles. We've smoked together. Um, it's just something you do as part of some parties. I
Okay.
try not to do it a lot because people come in and they're nervous and they're like, yeah, let's get in the hot tub and blow one down. And then they get too paranoid because they're too high and they don't have a good time.
That's fair. Been there.
Yeah.
See, now I'm more interested. Now there's hot tubs being involved. What are some of the? I don't want to get off here. You're getting me. I'm planning a vacation already. What other stuff? So the drugs are realistic. It is a real stigma. It's not a fake stigma. It's a real stigma, but it's one that is actively looked down upon in the industry because it hurts the image of the industry overall. Is that a good
Yeah, and
assessment?
it hurts the girls. You don't want a girl coming into work just to support her habit. You want to see a girl, they call it the 5 year and out plan. You want to see a girl making a plan with her life to exit this form of sex work in 5 years or less, whether she shoots into management or real estate or whatever she's doing. But it's not something we want, or it's not something the madams want to see the women doing year over year for the rest of their lives. Although we have girls that have been there for 10, 15 plus years that have been working girls when the madams were working girls. So it's not like they fire you for doing the same job all the time, but
I got you. So how many madams, like my image in my head is like there's one madam that runs the show and she probably has like a whip on her or something like that. Like that's like in my head, I go to like Moxie from fucking Borderlands. Like that's the image I have in my head of like what a madams looks like. Is
almost
it
that scary, but not quite, but like even more scary in her own like quiet way. We have one madam, she's dating the owner and she's the one who cracks the whip for sure. She's the hiring and firing madam. And then we have another madam who I'm close to both the madams, but I'm closer to the madam that's there all of the time. And she doesn't take so much of an authority role in some aspects. She takes more of a, an ear to listen and a shoulder to cry on type of role, almost like good cop, bad cop, because you have to have someone who's enforcing the rules. And that person is not going to be well liked, no matter how nice they are. And then you've got that person that people feel that they can come to and confide in and feel like someone in management really is there for them.
all right? So when you say you want to transition to become a madam, would that have to be at a different ranch, or are there other like job openings as a madam in the same ranch, or how does that work?
So right now Mustang only has two madams, and I think that that is a system that works well. I don't think there needs to be more cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. And my madam has already told me that in 10 years time, when she retires, I am going to be the person that replaces her. So I've got
Hey.
10 years to like get ready for that role. And I don't think I have like the maturity or the business acumen or anything to do that job currently, but I will acquire those things for sure.
That's dope. So that's not like an aspiration. That's like something that's like planned. Like you actually have that to look forward to then.
Yes. She told the owner, what was it, almost a month ago now, and he, you know, was talking to me about it. He's excited for me. So yeah. I mean, obviously it's within their they could change their mind, but I
Right,
don't
right,
think
right. No, I got you. I got you. That's dope. Look, we picked a good time to do the interview. We got a lot of good news to go over.
yeah.
Any other stigmas that you wanted to talk about? Try and either brush up on, take the wind out of.
Just that the girls would be catty to each other. Honestly, that's the third biggest stigma. I know that we already touched on that, but we do try to be there for each other and to be loving to each other and to be mentors to each other. I remember when I first came in, I used to smoke cigarettes because all the girls went out and smoked, and that was our like gossip time. I didn't want to miss out on that. And I'd be out there talking about this or that client, and one of the seasoned veterans would be like, "Oh, honey, he was blowing smoke right up your ass, this, that, and the other." Things that they've learned that they pass on to me for free. Some girls in the industry won't do it. It's called spitting game. You never want to spit game to somebody. I believe in spitting all the game to everybody. Like, that's the same mentality people used to have. Like, don't teach the peasants how to read. Everybody should know how to read. Everyone should know how to do this job well if they want to.
That's fire. All right, I'm in. I like that. Cool. Do you have any questions for me about anything while we're going through all of this? I just want to make sure that this is opened up.
Steve, I want to know if you've ever seen a sex worker. Have you ever paid for sex?
I have never paid for sex.
Not conventionally.
Yeah, damn right.
I bet you paid for plenty of dinners and fun shit.
Exactly. I paid one way or another, right? Here's my thing, right? Sex, I don't think I would enjoy hiring a sex worker. I'll probably get some head. I could do oral sex. I think I would enjoy that. See, like for me, when I have sex, I'm all about like pleasing the person that I'm with. I know that's like super generic thing to say, but like I'm an egotist, right? I get off on like seeing that I'm doing a good job and stuff like that. And I think that like I know that when I go to a strip club that it's her job to be nice to me. She doesn't give a fuck about me. You know what I mean? And I think that I would be in my own head too much. You know what I'm saying? To be like, is she faking this? Is it real? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think I would get too caught up in that I would end up ruining it for me. Now, if you want to like come do some edibles, chill in a hot tub, get some head cold, like, yeah, I could probably get down with that. You know what I mean? Because like, that's a different mentality. Like for me, when I want to come, when I want to get my shit off, like I prefer oral sex on the receiving end. And then like sex is usually like the lead up to that. You know what I mean? Like head is usually like my reward for a job well done. And I feel like in a pay for sex environment, I would just be like, man, she doesn't like this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like I could be wrong. Maybe once I get in the scenario and I'm saying schmooze up a little bit, you know what I mean? Get to know somebody and see what it's hitting for. I would feel differently. But I think, yeah, as of right now in my head, I think I would fuck it up for myself. That's my opinion.
That's
but
fair.
I'm not against it. I just logic myself out of it.
Ooh, you know what fucks it up for a lot of men? They get nervous, obviously, or they have a slight problem with erectile dysfunction and they come in and they're worried about that the whole time. And then it like a self-fulfilling prophecy, it happens. That's one of the biggest obstacles I think I have to get with men. And it's not men who are older. Men in their 20s come in with ED. And I think more men should be talking about it because y'all aren't talking about it because no. Y'all can't be talking about it as much as y'all need to be talking about it.
I've never had a conversation about it, so I would agree with you. I didn't know that was honestly, my first thing that went in my head is, oh, that makes sense. She deals with older clientele. And then you shot that down immediately right after that.
Yeah. So 23-year-olds coming in with erectile dysfunction, not just being nervous. It's like, it happens to men at any age and it needs to be talked about more. And something that needs to be talked about more is prostate cancer now that we're on the dick and balls subject.
Hey, let's go.
Hey, I've had clients come in and like after they come, I like to do a little cock concierge, take a baby wipe, take off the condom, wipe them all down, take care of them while they're laying there. And sometimes there's been blood on the condom that I know wasn't mine. So I take some gloves, I put some gloves on, I squirt the condom out onto a napkin, and there's blood in the semen. And that's a telltale sign of prostate cancer. And men most at risk for prostate cancer are aged 26 to 35. So like younger men come in.
Took a fucking terrifying turn.
Because I just had to tell somebody who was 29 years old that he had to go to the doctor and he was very freaked out about it. And he's like, what? I can't have cancer. I'm so young. I'm like,
that's not how that works.
That's not how that works. There's blood in your semen. Your gooch is all puffed out. Like, you need to get this seen about.
Holy shit.
And now I'm not an expert, but I always make sure to tell men if I see any signs of prostate cancer that, you might want to get that looked at.
You're saving lives out here. Let's go. Now, do people take dick pills before they come? Like, I feel like if I was going to a ranch and I knew that, like, I'm stopping at a gas station. I'm taking something with a rhino on it before, before I show up. Like, I feel like that. How
Absolutely.
I would assume that's normal, right? Like, that has to be like you know what you're going for. The last thing I'm gonna do is go in front of a professional and not be at 100%. Like, I feel like that's just good courtesy.
You would think that, but more than half the time they come in and they're like, oh, she's a professional. She's going to make it happen no matter what. She's going to do whatever it takes to make it happen for me. I don't need to take anything. And I think that's so wrong. Men, please, if you need to take something, just get over your ego and take it. Like, there's pills. If the pill doesn't work for you, there's other things. I've seen penis implants. I've seen penis pumps. There's any number of things you can do, but like, if you know that your dick might not work, you're paying a lot of money for this experience, and it could be a long time, but even if it's a day and a night,
Wait,
it's
what's your refund policy? Hold up. I come we go like I'm talking big game, right? I'm like, I'm about to rock your shit. You're gonna love this, right? We get up there and I'm just apologizing the whole time. Like, I swear this never happened.
that happens like so often. And before we go back, you have to sign a slip of paper that says you understand this is a non-refundable service.
Got him. Damn. You ever feel bad for somebody and like slide them $100 or something like that? Like,
Okay, look, no, not anymore. I did this one time when I was 21 years old. I had been working at the ranch for like 3 or 4 months, and this kid came in who was like 18 years old. Okay. And like, he was younger than me. I thought at the time, I'm 21. I'm like, this poor baby. And he came in and he had just started college, just moved into the dorm. It was his first weekend out with his friends. They came to the Mustang Ranch to pop their Mustang cherry. And he spent like, I forget what he spent. It was several $100s. It wasn't $1,000. So we didn't have a very long time together. But afterwards, he emailed me, because you can email us through the website. And he emailed me and he's like, oh my God, I spent all of my bill money. Is there any way I can call and get a refund and this and that? And I'm like, no, honey, we don't give refunds. And so he like called up there and they're like, well, we could give you a voucher and you could come in and have another experience. Basically, that's like, if anything, that's the best we'll do for you is we'll
store
let you
credit.
store credit. So this kid, but he had been emailing me and I felt so bad for him. I was like, come in, take a free tour with me on like, because there's cameras in the bar. There's cameras like all over the building except for the rooms that we party in. So I can take him on a tour and go in those rooms that don't have cameras. Anyway, I took him in one of the rooms. I gave him $200 cash and I was like, get the fuck out of here. Don't ever come back here and ask for a refund like this again. That's so disrespectful. I literally sucked you off till you came, you motherfucker. like I did the work and you didn't budget well. Let this be a lesson, young man.
That was nice of you, mama, burning him a little bit with that, though. You're a good person. Look at you.
I know. I hate myself for it sometimes. Like,
she's doing her $200,000 budget. Like, that motherfucker still got my 200. Like, what the?
It is. Look, I remember. Like, it was $200.
But yeah. So there. Let's talk money a little bit then, right? So they take a certain percentage of what you make.
50% off.
50%. So they take half of it's everything. It's like gifts, the actual charge, so on and so forth, right?
Gifts are discretion of the madam. I've gotten some really nice gifts before, and I've never had to pay for a single gift out of my paycheck. But theoretically, it's in our contract that if you receive a gift, the madams could decide that half the value of that gift is coming out of your paycheck if you decide to keep it. And that's so that they don't have people like coming in, spending the bare minimum for the maximum amount of time with a lady and then giving her a Cartier bracelet.
Right. Now I guess what I was leading into that with is you're allowed to have OnlyFans. I say allowed, but I mean like from a business standpoint, right? What's preventing them from being like, cool, I'm gonna come pay, like you said, minimal, like whatever it costs to do the party that I want to do, but you're gonna get a fat ass tip on your OnlyFans. That's like,
there's technically nothing preventing that but the goodwill between you and your business partner, the ranch. So girls have done plenty of shiesty shit. We constantly have girls tucking, is what we call it, tucking money, trying to hide money in their possessions in their room somewhere. That's why the madams do random and regular room checks. They do regular room checks to make sure that it's not a fucking mess in there. But yeah, they can go through all of your shit, your cell phone, your room. They can go through your vehicle.
What can they go
For
through
any
on
reason
your
or no
cell
reason.
phone?
What'd you say?
What can they go through on your cell phone?
So I've had this happen to me. They came into my room in the middle of my night, which was the middle of the day years ago. And they're like, give us your phone. And I'm like, and I gave it to them and they're like, what's the passcode? And I like typed it in and they like went through the whole thing, like right there in front of me, both the madams. So there's no, he said, she said, you've got a witness with you at all times. And they were looking for messages or phone call logs between me and clients. Another girl had been caught seeing clients outside the ranch and had been texting them and calling them, which is not policy for the ranch. You do everything through email or through the house phone. And she was like, oh, well, Dacé does this too. If you're going to fire me, you got to fire her.
Oh, so she got her ass beat. All right, I got you.
Yeah. And so, like, after they sat there for like 10 or 15 minutes, like going through everything on my phone and then threw it down on the bed. And they're like, good, you didn't do anything. Like, and I'm sitting there having a heart attack the whole time, mind you.
So like, I mean, like, are they going through like Facebook messages? They're going through Snapchat. They're going through emails. Like they hit the whole shebang.
Yeah, they're typing in cell phone numbers to see if any history pops up between you and that number. They're very thorough. They know all the tricks.
I mean, I imagine it's their specialty, right? Like you got to protect the brand, protect the business, and everything like that. I'm not mad at them for it, but it does seem like something that would be very, very difficult to regulate. But I
Yeah,
get
I mean,
so it's,
imagine having to make sure that hundreds of these girls aren't stealing money from you or embezzling money from your business. Like that's
but like if you're doing so, like OnlyFans is still honest work, right? So like,
yeah.
how could they pull up like your OnlyFans and determine that this has been for one of our services and not just because you got some bomb photos?
They can't do that. And you can't see someone's OnlyFans unless you subscribe to it. So they can't even see how often or how much content I'm posting. They can't see interactions between me and other people on there. So they would have no record of it. They really just have
If they
to.
can get into your phone, they can do that though, right? Like you have it logged in on your phone, right?
No, I haven't logged in on my computer.
All right, so you smart too. Okay, I got you. All right, so they can't be like pull up your OnlyFans and log in front of us.
Theoretically, they could.
And just I think this is I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of gray area to me.
There is a lot of gray area. I mean, they can fire you at any time for any reason just because you look at them the wrong way. Do they do that? No. Um, have I seen some fucked up shit go on? Yeah.
Couple questions. How many girls work at the ranch? Estimate.
Probably a couple hundred girls are contracted, have signed contracts this year. There's only 20 to 30 girls there at any given time across 3 shifts.
See, that's what I was thinking, like 13 to 20, something like that in my head. But you said, but I guess that makes sense across shifts and everything like that. Okay.
Yeah, you have some girls that only work in the summertime. Like we get a bunch of teachers that work in the summertime to make up. I mean, you can make up more than what you earn the whole year teaching just 2 months of sex work. So
Yeah, probably right. That says a lot about our education system. Shit.
yeah.
All right, let's talk about the legalization versus decriminalization of sex
Mm.
work. This is something that you had brought up previously that you were interested in talking about, and I want you to go over what the difference is, right? And the view of it, because like you started spitting facts and number, like you was in your bag on this one, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
from a sex worker standpoint, right? Legalization versus decriminalization. Break it down for me.
Okay. So legalization is the model that I'm currently working under the regulated brothel industry in Nevada, where someone's taking half your money and you're beholden to all of the regulations set forth by the state and by the county that you work out of, and by the house rules from the house that you work out of. So it's the trifecta of shit you have to deal with there. Decriminalization would be a model in which it was basically a free-for-all for consenting adults. As long as you're over the age of 18, you can buy and sell sexual services. You don't have to do it inside of any sort of regulated business environment. You could do it from your home, from someone else, anywhere. As long as you're not having sex in public, obviously that's against the law. I am for the legalization model because I work in this model and it works for me. There are a lot of good attributes to having it be like this. There are a lot of cons. First off being that the 50%, and people really get off on that. Oh, no, oh, sorry. Oh, I pressed something, sorry. People really get off on someone's taking half your money. But let me stress to you that in America, like most of the comments in the video that I made on this, in America, you're making less than 20% from the company versus what your value to them. So it's like a 20-80 split in most corporations. 50-50 is the fucking dream, honestly. 50-50 is really good.
I think the numbers that you're talking about, they could take 80% and you'd still probably make more than 95% of Americans. So like I get what you're talking about as far as that goes. And then like you're right, like if they're paying you $40,000 a year in corporate America, they're probably making 120,000. You just don't know that.
Exactly. People really don't know the value that they bring to their company, and so they don't have a lot of bargaining power. I, on the other hand, know exactly the value I bring to my company because I only make the money that I make. You know what I'm saying? I'm not paid hourly. I'm paid by the experience, by whatever I can get out of somebody, divided by half. So decriminalization would be a model in which people do not have to pay 50% and they just do it between two consenting adults in an unregulated environment. Besides the medical aspect, I think that leaves women so exposed, especially the women who would be most at risk for this type of thing to happen to them. It leaves people so exposed for trafficking and for pandering, which is the technical term for pimping out.
I got you. Those things are already happening. You're saying that would just become rampant then, I guess.
I think that's probably kind of a narrow-minded, like fearful thing to think about it, because it's the same mindset people have around keeping drugs illegal, which I think all drugs should be legal. If you want to fuck yourself up, go for it, you know. Right. But like my friend and I were having this discussion, I messaged her. Actually, I'll bring our text messages up. This is one of my oldest friends and another working girl at the ranch. But I was like, look, I just put something into the words that I've known for a long time, but I've never been able to verbalize so succinctly. Sex work is very much a live and let live world. Most people are democratic in that if you got a group of people together and told them to decide on something, they would most likely take a majority wins vote on it. That's democracy. Live and let live is anarchy in comparison. Sex work is inherently threatening to most people. And she's like, yeah, I totally agree with you. Libertarians are very pro-sex work. Live and let live is definitely an attractive idea, but it comes at a cost. There's nothing, no government entity at least, stopping people from exploiting each other or shared resources. No room for socialist policies that are for the common good. It's the Wild West of politics. Less restrictions will always mean less protection. So that's what I think about decriminalization. There are way less restrictions and therefore there's less protection in place.
I have a feeling this is a topic we could probably talk about for the next 16 hours. So I don't want to get into every thought that crosses my mind while we're getting into it. But for the most part, then you are just pro legalization, not pro decriminalization in this case scenario for sex work.
Yes. And also it will carry the most weight politically. Being able to profit off of the sex industry is something that will have politicians more in favor for it, because America is just a capitalist society. You know, it's just money, 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 money.
I agree.
So if
What is
you're looking
special?
at what?
What is special about Nevada? Why is Nevada like? I don't know that you know this, but I would assume you would. You surprised me with some facts. You already like pulling out legal codes on me and stuff like that. Why is Nevada the only place in the United States where there's legal sex work?
Because once upon a time in 1971, a Sicilian immigrant decided, hey, we could really do this thing. He got with this woman, Sally from Reno, Joe Conforti. I'm talking about Joe Conforti, which we call the godfather of American prostitution. He's the man that got it legalized in Nevada. And loosely, what he did was fell in love with a girl and decided to open a brothel with her. He used to be a cab driver and he'd be running girls out of the back of his cab. And he was like, I could make an establishment where I can have my boys over. We can drink. He loved to smoke cigars. We can have cigars. We can play poker. We can have girls. We can have people with the girls, and it's no big deal, and this and that.
Amen.
He just, right? He bought all this property outside Reno, Nevada, at exit 23, the original Mustang ranch location. It's still the Mustang exit today. He bought up all this land and all these little trailers, and he started moving people out there so they could vote the way that he wanted them to vote, and he got it voted in. Now, he was heavily connected to the mob, and he paid off a lot of people in Reno, and it's a whole deep, dark hole you could get into with Joe
Wow.
Conforti. Yeah, he's like one of the only people that's got it over on the IRS. He fled to Brazil. $18 million owed to the IRS. This motherfucker flees to Brazil, died in his bed at 96, surrounded by 20 wives and all of his kids and grandkids. Like,
I got a new aspiration for my fucking legacy. Let's go. I'm gonna die surrounded by 20 Jones in Brazil and 19 million. That's beautiful. I'm in. I'm in. All right. So here's my question. In the event that you got your wish and prostitution becomes legal, let me ask you this before we get into that. Sex worker is not offensive.
no, not to me.
Is prostitute offensive?
I don't take it personally and take offense to it, but it is a very stigmatized word.
Hooker. Sounds offensive.
I would call myself a hooker and a prostitute, but I don't want you to. That's kind of, yeah.
Fair enough. I think this is more personal opinion, right? I feel like sex worker is a terrible term. It's so off-putting. Like I know that it's like the new age thing, but like it's like it feels extra legal, like you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel personable at all. You know what I mean? Like I don't like I think like with males they call it like gigolo, right? Like it's still not a good term, but at least it's like goofy. Gigolo sounds goofy. It doesn't sound like you know what I mean? Like
Oh, there's myriad terms. I mean, you could call me a courtesan if you want. That's the
see, that's what I'm looking for. Like, what's the preferred terminology that's like the most easygoing and like, hey, I'm not an asshole. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, I just prefer sex worker because I'm in that fight the fight stage, 28-year-old energy, passionate about it, like ramming it down people's throat. I'm a sex worker. Like, but courtesan is a very nice, proper word.
courtesan. I like that. All right, cool. Let's take a look here. I feel like we covered a lot. I appreciate you taking all this time with me today too. I know like I know you're busy. I appreciate you taking the time out to come and chop it up with all this. I had so many questions. I have a couple questions from the internet. Like I said, I put out a tweet about it. I put it on my Facebook and things like that. I was like, hey, I'm having this interview. What are some questions that you guys would have? Is it cool if I give you some questions from the audience, so to speak?
Hit me with it.
All right. Is the job worth the stereotypes and stigma that come along with it?
Yeah. Although some days recently, I've questioned myself on that. Yeah.
What
Especially crying about the bank the other day. I got a phone call from the bank that issues my paycheck, by the way. My employer banks with this bank, First Independent Bank of Nevada. I went and opened several accounts with them, business, personal savings. They were happy and excited for me on the day. They called me days later with some follow-up questions. And then after that, they called me and closed my account, said they were sending me all my money to the address they had on file. Their SEC department decided my accounts, my business is too high risk to hold accounts with them. That's because they're insured by the FDIC. I get that federally. They're under a lot of pressure to work with people. I mean, it's the same issue that people are going through that own dispensaries. So I get that. It's just that they're banking with my employer. They're literally the bank that cuts my paycheck, and they wouldn't give me a business account with them. It broke my heart. It made me feel like scum, like what I'm doing isn't valid and doesn't matter. It was so
Wow.
stupid. And my doctor, recently, I got terminated as a patient because my doctor has a difference, or my ex-doctor had a difference of opinion about the morality of sex work. She's well within her legal rights to do that. She gave me 30 days written notice before our next appointment that she was terminating our relationship. But I'd been seeing that doctor for 5 years. And the things that she said to me and the way she treated me after finding out that I was a sex worker has been mentally harmful, in that I spent weeks completely paralyzed, unable to go seek out care from another OBGYN, from another gynecologist. So getting all heated about it. But it just like
I'm very sorry you had to deal with that. I dealt with something similar to, not me, but one of my girls dealt with. Oh, that sounded so bad to say that out loud. Um, doesn't matter. There's a woman who I am associated with who recently had an issue with birth control and religious issues with her doctor. So like I know that
wow.
it's not uncommon that physicians' personal beliefs get in the way of them treating and doing their job. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. That's really shitty.
Yeah, it
Um,
was super shitty, but I'm with a new doctor now who treats me like a human being.
which is a good thing from the person that's supposed to keep you alive, right?
Yeah.
It's on the list of things we look for. This kind of goes into what we talked about earlier, though, right? Like where I think it's cool that they had a handful of therapists for you to pick from. Is there gonna like is there like some type of like care package like, hey, you can go and do banking with this bank because they aren't assholes. You can go and like here, doctor, like do we have these resources and you just happen to go outside of that, or that doesn't currently exist and it's kind of like figure it out.
Well, I mean, I could only go off the ranch's advice, and they have advised me through a great many things. Like the owner of the ranch is the largest commercial real estate developer in Nevada. So he can help you with anything real estate related. And it's part of the reason I chose to branch off and also go into real estate. I mean, it's clearly lucrative and working for him, and I can always ask him advice. Um, but they told me to go with First Independent Bank. When I got my OnlyFans, I was very aware that when you receive a direct deposit from OnlyFans, it flags your account with Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, all those big national banks. And it is causing some of my coworkers to receive letters from banks, from Wells Fargo and Chase specifically, that say, we think you're money laundering, we think you're fraudulent in some way. We're holding your money for 180 days
Wow.
and we're closing your accounts. And like, yeah, we make thousands and thousands of dollars a week, but like if you just froze my bank account, you don't know what you know, I've got my fingers in so many
Yeah,
pies.
you can
I need
fuck
my money.
someone's whole life up. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like it's just, and it's one of those things where it's like I was losing sleep at night over it. So I thought, I'm not going to wait for my fucking letter. I'm going to my employer. I'm going to ask them what to do. They were like, go open an account at First Independent, see if they'll let you do that. That's who we bank with. So now, and they don't share a lot of things with me from their end because I'm just another working girl. And I try to stress this to girls, like I have no pull with management. I have no powers to get you hired or fired or whatever. But I messaged my madam the day that the bank canceled my accounts. I mean, I messaged her the day that they opened the accounts, and I was so excited. She was happy for me. Messaged her the day that they closed the accounts. And between me messaging her and her responding, and I went to do something to make myself happy and distracted for an hour and a half, she messages me before I have time to respond. And she's like, another lady that banks with First Independent just contacted me and is having her account closed. And I'm like, oh no, because I made waves, they're taking a look at all this other stuff. And I don't know if they contacted the ranch about their business account with First Independent, but the madam shared with me that the owner was having a meeting on 2 days from now on the 28th with a credit union. Now, credit unions are not FDIC insured, I believe. They're owned by members, and the members of a credit union in Nevada would reside in Nevada and be beholden to Nevada state law. So I believe credit unions are like the way I'm going to have to go. So my employer will tell me more when they have that meeting, but they
Develop
try.
your story. Wow,
they,
that's
they
shitty.
try.
So like there probably will be a uniform standard once you figure out what the uniform standard needs to be then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't mind sharing with any working ladies or anyone just vaguely interested uh, what the steps I take, who I use for banking, for real estate, for CFWAs and CPAs and stuff like that. If you're sex worker friendly and you're helping me, I'm going to put it out there so other girls can get those resources. And like I said, I would really like to have a website
Wow.
just dedicated to sex worker things in Nevada resources.
I look forward to you making that. That seems like something that should have probably been done by now. So like the fact that you're spearheading that, like that's dope. That's really dope.
Thank you.
All right, let's keep going with some of these questions we got for you. All right.
Okay.
I expected this to all be like childish. They were. They were hitting you with like the deep shit, right? Um,
Yeah.
aside from the sex, do you enjoy the job? Does it give you a sense of fulfillment?
Yes.
You
You
could
know,
you talked about that heavily earlier with, you know what I mean, like it got a lot deeper than just I gave somebody a good time.
yeah. So short answer, yes. But even the mundane aspects of the job from, getting all the supplies together for a party that's coming up, cleaning up after a party, you're like, oh, can't wait until this is one of those crazy old stories I'm telling.
Okay, I like it. Um, I run a music channel. You are aware of this. You checked it out, right? Hopefully, you
Yeah.
picked up a cool couple new artists from the gang. They want to know what songs do you like to have sex to versus what are the most requested songs to put on from the clients?
So the most requested would be just put on some R&B. Um, that's, I mean, and it's good, and we can do. I mean, I like new age R&B, but we could do 90s R&B if they want. But I just like this band called the Technicolors lately. I was into this band called Rye for a while. Unfortunately, he's like a predator or something. That's unfortunate. I really like their music, but
It's got the pop punk curse.
yeah, but Doechi, Bree Runaway, the Technicolors. I'm pretty eclectic.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like you got in late to the game. I feel like sex work would have been really good around the age where people were making each other mixtape CDs. Like I feel like you'd have been handed like some really good mixtape CDs back in the day. That seems like a
Oh
missed
yeah.
opportunity. Maybe you get like a USB drive now.
Well, now people are just like, let me add this to your Spotify playlist, which, I enjoy that.
it's it's not the same.
No.
So one of the questions were, did you watch the convos that I had with Eva? And if so, what were your thoughts? So I do know that you mentioned it, that you did check out those videos. What were your thoughts on the previous conversations?
I just based on the titles, I skimmed over 1, 2, and 3, and I watched parts 4, 5, and 6, not in totality, but I watched a lot of those. She had some really good points talking about when you should tell your children about sex and about things earlier. Like, I don't have children, I'm not gonna have children, but I have nieces and nephews and friends with children, and the earlier that you teach them appropriate verbiage and appropriate actions surrounding their bodies and sex, the more confident they're going to be. And let me stress the confidence because you can know all of the things and still get taken advantage of. But a confident child is a lot less likely to be taken advantage of. I will tell you, I had no confidence as a child. So anyone willing to give me a little bit of attention or make me feel a tiny bit special in any way, I would have walked right off of them, off the playground, off the church, wherever.
I got
So
you.
yeah. So telling kids that it's called a penis, it's called a vagina, that needs to be done. So I really like that part of the conversation with her. I didn't get to watch all of the video where you're talking about kinks because it was time for our interview, but
Hey. So Do you feel at this point that you made the right decision in doing the interview?
Oh yeah.
Cool. I'm
Yeah,
glad
I've
you
had a
enjoyed
really
yourself.
positive experience, and I super appreciate you giving me a platform to talk about a lot of the things we talked about today.
No, absolutely. I'm excited that you came through and it went better than I could have imagined. You're very, very natural on camera.
Oh,
You
thank
seem
you.
I mean, obviously from the TikToks, you know what I mean? It's not a topic that you're unfamiliar with. You know what I mean? Like this, it all went fucking beautifully. I appreciate it. Last question was, well, it's like a two-parter, right? So how do we find you? Right? They're gonna see you, they're gonna love you, they want to support you any way they can.
Aw.
What's the best way for them to do that?
The best way is TikTok or Instagram. I'm allowed to post a lot more stuff on Instagram than I am TikTok because it's so restricted. But TikTok is where I make videos most often. So, yeah, either of
Cool.
those. But you can connect with me on Instagram. I try to respond to every message. So, yeah,
And it's Modern Working Girl on both.
on everything. I think I have a Twitter I've almost never used before. I have a YouTube as well.
See, the YouTube's where it's at. This is cool. So I always try to end the interviews with flipping it on you. Is there any questions that you have for me or you have for the audience? Anything that you want to point the finger back at or anything like that? Let me know.
Um, That's a good question. I should have thought about that before, but I would just say, how prepared are you to support sex workers in your area, in your local community, Steve?
What
Are
does that
you
mean?
willing? Are you willing to get off your ass and go vote for us to do things that matter for sex workers? Because a lot of Americans aren't. Because when it comes down to, are you supportive of sex work? A lot of people are like, yeah, I believe you should do whatever you want with your own body, but it doesn't bring them to the polls to make that decision.
I don't vote, so no. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like if I were to vote, I would absolutely support everything. But like I don't even vote presidential elections or nothing like that. I try to stay as far away. Here's my thing, and I'm gonna keep it 100 with you, right? I am very. This is such a weird turn. I've never seen this conversation taking this turn. Let's get into it though. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I am very anti-democracy. I think democracy is a great idea. I think democracy is great. Well, you made a good example earlier. If there's me and 10 of my friends and we don't know what to eat, we're gonna put it to a vote. Majority rules. That's what we're getting for dinner. I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. What doesn't make a lot of sense is when you have 300 million people that have the education of a fucking brick and you're expecting their votes to change. Like, I know that I don't know enough to go and vote for something. Because if you ask me, like, here's the people that are running, what the fuck are their policies on anything? And then if you told me their policies, am I going to understand what any of that means? Like, I truly believe that like it's literally it's a high school popularity contest in American politics. And I choose not to participate in it because I don't know what I'm voting for. And there's no laws that hold politicians accountable to what they campaign for. So it is just as possible that I'll think that I'm doing a good thing voting for hero number 5 over here, and it turns out that that's the next fucking Hitler. Like there's nothing that stops that from being a thing, right? So like, it's the combination of those things that like, and now everyone's like, oh well, if you fucking don't vote, then you don't get to bitch about it. And I'm like, I'm fine. I don't bitch about anything. I agree with that. I think if you're not gonna put the work in, then you can't bitch about it, and that's cool with me because I don't bitch about shit. But what I do is the things that I do participate in, like this. I participate in YouTube. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna use my platform to voice my opinions, to give the platform to conversations that I think are important, that hold water, so on and so forth, and in the hopes that that makes some kind of a difference in a positive direction. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I super appreciate that, and I really thank you, and I thank you for your honesty. And if I may, I would just encourage everyone watching to actually go out and vote on things, at least
Yes.
at a local level, because I see a difference in it happening at a local level. Prostitution being available in Story County was on the ballot in 2019 for Reno locals. And because the brothel went out there and educated people, we went from a 60% pass rate to a 90% pass rate. And now we were always going to have it passed and have it stay. It was never like but going out and educating the community we saw a 30% increase in people that were for the brothel system and showed up and showed out for us and put their pen to paper for us. So I think it does matter, especially at a local level.
And I agree. I think that's beautiful. I advocate. I'm a hypocrite. That's fine. I own up to it. So, for instance, I do a lot of work in Africa when I do the hip hop reactions, right? And Nigeria is going through an election right now, and they have to get like their PVC is like voter registration here, right? I give my channel to every single one of the contests that the hip hop artists hold. That's like trying to push kids to go out and get their PVC to go vote and stuff like that. I do push the positive message. I just am a hypocrite in that the actions that I take don't match the words that I say.
And that's fine. That's a lot of people. As long as you know, are all for it, you know.
Exactly. But I would use my voice in the ways that I think are helpful to, you know what I'm saying, to do X, Y, and Z. You caught me on the politics thing. I wasn't expecting that to come through. I don't have it in my heart to lie to you. So I'm just like, I'll at least explain my bad habits
No,
away, right?
it's fine. And I agree with you. And I don't think you should vote one specific way. When I vote, I sit down with my mail-in ballot and I look at every candidate and what their women's rights policies are, basically. And that's how I vote, you know. Whether or not the candidate sticks to that in the long run, just like the senator of Nevada right now, Catherine Cortez Masto, she's been the senator for a while. Her last legislation she passed that made any difference to women in my industry was in 2011 or 12. So, you know, she talks a big game, but
see, and like I wouldn't know that. You know what I mean? Like the average person, I feel like the average American couldn't name the 3 branches of government. I'm confident in that. I would take that bet 100% of the time.
No,
like,
it's taken me hours of research to even form an opinion on this woman, and most people aren't going to sit down and do that. Exactly.
But I can have a conversation with you on my platform in front of 30,000 people, and now everyone knows that this bitch is not worth voting for. So I'm with you. If you're not gonna push women's rights forward, like I do have good beliefs. It's just the you know, lackadaisical. And like you could say that it's because, like, you know, cis white male, I don't really have too many things affecting me, and you're probably right. That's probably I might feel differently, you know what I'm saying, like with taking up the fight if I was directly affected, but I'm at least acknowledging the fact that it's bad, right?
No, I know. I mean, years ago when I was first ever discriminated against, I messaged my friend. I was so upset, and she's like, "Aw, did someone discriminate against you for half a second?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And it fucking sucks, and I never want it to happen to me or anybody else ever again. Like,
facts. You made the point earlier. How can I expect to be empathetic to someone who's never been through it, who doesn't know what it's like, you know what I'm saying, to have lived a hard life, so on and so forth. I feel like that plays directly into that very, very well. Any questions not politically charged that's going to get everyone to start unsubscribing from me to go over?
No, I mean, we can talk about tons of things for hours and hours, but I don't have any pressing statements or questions.
Cool. Then I want to thank you very much for taking the time to come and chop it up with me. We're going to let you go on this. And as always, for everybody that's watching, go follow her on TikTok, follow her on Instagram, Modern Working Girl. Is it The Modern Working Girl?
Yes, The Modern Working Girl.
The Modern Working Girl on all platforms. Go and show her some support. Drop some comments. Show her some love down below. As always, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I will catch y'all on the next one. Let's go. That was super dope.